Good morning and welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Pittsburgh. It is Sunday, August 15th of 2021. My name is Reverend Dr. Kate Walker, and I am so honored and truly delighted to serve as the newly called minister of this wonderful community. I am so grateful that you chose this time to be with us this morning. You've crawled out of your beds, you might have your coffee and a muffin, and you have chosen to be with us, and thank you. If you are brand new and the first time you've clicked on this link, I expend an even deeper sense of gratitude that you chose to be with us this morning. Please go to our website, be in touch with us, let us know who you are so you can get to know us better and we can get to know you better as well. I, of course, am not producing this morning's worship by myself. Oh, no. I have an amazing team of people here with me in this chapel. And, of course, this morning we have our beautiful music from our guest musician, Kazumi Petanao. And we are so grateful for your time this morning. And we have our amazing tech team, Will Snavely and Andrew Popoli. And I am joined also by Alice Carnes as our liturgist. It takes a team this morning to bring you worship. I hope your heart expands as much as mine does. I invite you now into a time to start thinking about worship. Take a deep breath. Arrive in body, in time and space, into this call of worship. This morning we are exploring the art of the question. The art of the question that invites us to explore mysteries and to see where the mystery takes us with more questions, more exploration of humanity and the universe and what makes us all tick. So I invite us now as we light our chalice, that the light of this chalice and its flame burn bright in your mind and in your heart and in your soul with the quest of unraveling, revealing, exploring. Where shall we go with our questions? And are we really ready for the answers? Welcome. Welcome to you all.
Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be our joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your ears to the song. Open your ears to the song. Today will be our joyful day. Open your ears to the song. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be our joyful day. Open your hearts, everyone. Don't be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be our joyful day. Don't be afraid of some change. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be our joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be our joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in.
I want to offer a story that is a traditional story from the very heart and the beginning of the Buddhist religion. It happened many, many years ago. And this is about a prince named Siddhartha, who went on to become known as the Buddha, the first Buddha. Siddhartha lived in the country of India. And he lived in a palace with his whole family, his parents and grandparents and cousins, and a wife and a young baby. He lived amongst the riches of this palace in a beautiful park setting with opulence, luxury, all the food and the beauty that he could ever want in his lifetime. He grew up like this, somewhat protected from the larger world. But as he grew into a young man, he heard one day the sound of a beautiful voice, a woman singing in the forest beyond the walls of his beautiful palace. And he said to his father, I must go see this beautiful voice and this woman who is singing. Please prepare the chariot for me. The chariot arrived, but his father also arranged that the path to the forest would be cleared of any signs of suffering, pain, illness, death, and only flowers and beauty would welcome his son. He wanted only the best for his son. The chariot arrived, Siddhartha got on board, and they set out from the gate, and he saw flowers and beauty. And till the corner of his eye, he saw a frail man leaning over on a cane, trying to cross the street as quickly as possible. And the prince said, What is this? What is this? I have never seen this. And the chariot driver said, Oh, that is age. That is what happens as we grow older and more feeble. The prince was shocked. I can't see this kind of pain and suffering. Take me back to the palace. The chariot driver immediately turned around and returned the prince. But the next day, the prince heard the voice singing again in the forest beyond the walls and said, Please bring the chariot. I will try again. Got in the chariot. His father cleared the path of any signs of pain and suffering. And he got in the chariot and saw beauty and flowers. But then at the corner of his eye, he looked and he saw a woman sitting on the roadside just behind somebody else. And he said, Stop the chariot. What is this? And the woman was covered in sores, and she had a broken limb, and her face was filled with pain. The chariot answered and said, This is illness and injury. It causes pain. Siddhartha said, No, I can't deal with this. Take me back to the palace. Chariot turned around and took him back. The third day came, and again, Siddhartha insisted he go see and hear the singer in the woods behind his beautiful palace. His father cleared the path. Siddhartha got in the chariot, and they were cruising along when out of the corner of his eye, he saw two people carrying a long bundle wrapped up in cloths. Stop! What is this? And the chariot driver said, This is death. Someone has died, and he's being taken for burial and for his fire to be returned to the gods and the goddesses. Oh, Siddhartha was truly shocked. His first sign of death. No, I can't see this. No, take me back to the palace. But this time the chariot driver refused, and instead let Siddhartha see the pain and the suffering. And he took Siddhartha to a tree where Siddhartha needed to feel his heart break open with compassion and love. And thus began the changing of one human being because he asked questions of what is this? And more importantly, the chariot driver answered and then refused to let Siddhartha look away. Sometimes the answers take us places we don't always want to go. But then a new world religion was born, slowly over time, expanding our hearts with the message of compassion and love and the knowledge that suffering is a part of life. And our hearts break open again and again. This is our story about questions and where they take us. It's one of my favorite ones. I hope you enjoyed it too. I invite Alice over for our offering.
We welcome your donations to support the life and the work of the First Unitarian Church community. Donations by check may be mailed to the church office. Electronic donations can be made online through the church website or by texting GIVE to 412-435-1050 and following the instructions.
I invite your hearts to come together as I share some brief news about some of our members. One of them, longtime member Barb Gangler, is being hospitalized, awaiting major surgery coming this week. So we invite you to keep Barb and her husband Randy in your heart and in your thoughts and prayers as they go through a particularly difficult challenge this coming week. I invite you into a time of prayer, time of meditation, and some silence as we get ourselves grounded and remember that so many people are suffering in this world right now, some in our own community in silence at home. But we also remember there are joys. There are many joys in this world, and we balance them in our hearts and in our minds. May the spirit of life and love envelop us with its powerful force of energy and sustenance and expand our capacity for resilience. May the spirit of peace fill any anxiety and stress in our hearts, inviting us to be grounded in this life with community, with the earth, with beauty and joy. May the spirit of justice guide our words and our deeds, reminding us of how we can help others as the fabric of oppression has woven its way into our lives and throughout this world. We offer our deep love and thoughts and our care for all the places in this world that is full of fire from climate crisis, that is full of devastating storms. And we offer our hearts and our prayers for all who are suffering in the face of what's going on in Afghanistan in particular right now. For all of these, we open our hearts. We expand who we are, feel connected to the world, and we may cry, but we remember the joy, the peace, the justice that counterbalances all that suffering. May our hearts, may our minds open up and know we are connected to one another. Blessed be, and amen.
This morning's reading is by Jill Tarter, entitled A Universe of Possibilities. We live on a fragile island of life, in a universe of possibilities. For many millennia, humans have been on a journey to find answers. Answers to questions about naturalism, transcendence, about who we are and why we are, and of course, who else might be out there? Is it really just us? Are we alone in this vast universe of energy and matter and chemistry and physics? Well, if we are, it's an awful waste of space. But what if we're not? What if out there others are asking and answering similar questions? What if they look up at the night sky, at the same stars, but from the opposite side? Would the discovery of an older cultural civilization out there inspire us to find ways to survive our increasingly uncertain technological adolescence? Might it be the discovery of a distant civilization and our common cosmic origins that finally drives home the message of the bond among all humans? Whether we're born in San Francisco or Sudan, or close to the heart of the Milky Way galaxy, we are the products of a billion-year lineage of wandering stardust. We, all of us, are what happens when a primordial mixture of hydrogen and helium evolves for so long that it begins to ask where it came from.
Oh, I love that reading. I can hear those words again and again. So I started at the very beginning of my career to hold an annual question box Sunday. Perhaps you have experienced that here in the tradition at First Unitarian Church of Pittsburgh. There's different ways of doing it. My style is generally to receive the questions during worship, and I don't see them until I read them, kind of like a press conference. It adds a bit of excitement and some trust that people's questions will be kind and I can understand them. I do have the caveat, though, that this is not Stump the Chump, that I have certain areas of expertise, not many, but just a few. And I also have the caveat that some of these questions are actually so good and so deep that I'm going to pull them out and save them for a sermon at a later date. So, having said all that, some of you emailed me some questions, and if I have enough time, I will get through all of them. And if I have too much time, I actually have some questions that I've pulled off the internet that I think are particularly brilliant, just in case. So I'm going to watch the time here, make sure I don't go too long, because this is too much fun. So, question. And I'm not going to give the names. You guys, you know who you are, and thank you for sending these in. How do I develop the ability to laugh at myself and my mistakes? I can often be my harshest critic. Thanks. Oh, what a great question. How can I develop the ability to laugh at myself and my mistakes? Well, I'd be happy to be a mentor to you in that because I make mistakes all the time. Yep, and if we can't laugh at ourselves, oh my gosh, that would be harsh. Obviously, the biggest question when we make a mistake is, have we caused any harm or suffering to another? And that's the first thing I always ask. If this mistake has caused harm to another, my inner voice needs to make sure right relationship has been repaired. And I make sure that I reach out to that person and see what steps I need to do to make sure the right relationship has been restored and to see how I can mitigate the impact of my mistake. And if it's a minor mistake and I haven't had a lot of impact, what a relief. I would say the biggest piece for me on a very deep internal, very spiritual level is to accept imperfection as a part of life. In fact, perfection to me is really quite boring in a way. There is perfection in some areas of life that is joyful and beautiful. I would say to some degree the arts are driven by perfection. I don't need to talk to a pianist about that and how hard that can be, about the perfection in music. But at the same time, we learn, the idea is to learn from our mistakes and, okay, check the ego. That's a big one. Check the ego. Make sure the ego is just calmed down and we can love ourselves, loving ourselves truly and deeply. So I hope that helps. And my guess is when we make mistakes, there are others right sitting beside us who have done the same thing. And so it's a great way to bond with other people. Okay. This one is a little bit longer. Bear with me. How would you walk with a child through the loss of her father? My brother had a very terrible stroke and is entering hospice care. I am most concerned for his 13-year-old daughter, who has had a distant relationship with him due to him living far away and being inattentive and struggling with drugs and alcohol addictions. How would you walk through the process of grief when the death is slow and the relationship was never close to ideal? How do I and the adults around her help her come to terms with the complicated emotions she is likely to feel? Wow. This is hard, without a doubt. I think all of our hearts are breaking for this one. I note that she is 13, and at that point, developmentally, I would recommend being direct and honest. At that age, adolescents have what I call a BS sensor that's really active. Just be straight up and honest. Listen. Make sure she has the resources that she needs to work through her emotions in any context. And it's not just now when her father is dying, or 5 years from now, or 10 years from now. This is going to be an ongoing issue. And resources include professional therapy support, which I highly recommend considering. She may not be open to it now, but maybe she is in 6 months or 5 years from now. But making sure she has those resources. There may be an opportunity to connect with other kids her age who have also lost a parent. That can be very helpful. And the last thing I would say is this is what would probably be called a complex grief. Because it's not just the loss of her father by death, it's the loss of her father through addictions from time and space, and maybe probably complex issues around abandonment as well. So it's what's called a complex grief, and that adds to it as well. But certainly don't treat her as a child. She won't probably receive that very well. But be appropriate for her for where she is emotionally and maturing-wise, but be honest and direct, and give her the space. She may need to retreat. Don't let her retreat too far. Just sometimes you may just need to sit with her silently so she knows she's not alone. This is a tough one. Yeah. Thank you for asking. Okay, this one is headed lightweight. Have you ever had a really embarrassing moment happen while you were in the pulpit? Just one? Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's times like Question Box Sunday where I'm trying to remember the name of a movie or an actor or a book. Yep. And I just basically appeal to the mass memory that's in front of me, asking, please help me with this. Being a middle-aged woman, I have had multiple hot flashes while I'm preaching, doing the prayer. That's a popular time. So yeah, trust me, there has been some embarrassing moments. There was one time when, very early in my career, I'm working through my sermon, and I get to flip to the last page, and the last page's not there. It was in my office. I had to wing that one. I told people, yeah, my last page is gone. I'm just going to go by memory at this point. Referring to the first question about mistakes, it's a perfect opportunity for me to laugh at myself and demonstrate to people we all make mistakes. Yeah. So great question. I know you love your dogs, as do I. You love my dogs? Thank you. Their names are Amy and Rory, for those who are wondering. They're 2 Springer Spaniels. But what is so special about companion animals? Oh, my gosh. I've always had pets. what is so special about companion animals? Gosh, it is the heartfelt connection. Those puppy faces, they look at you and you just melt. It's such on a chemical level, our brains do react. Absolutely. Our brains are reacting just as we do when we're in love with a human being. Our chemistries are flying as we have that wonderful heartfelt connection. Those hormones are kicking in, all those good feeling triggered chemistries that are going. So it's special because it helps us feel like we're connected, we're not alone. We have somebody who's just being there with us and helping us remember the importance of love and commitment again and again and again. And also laughter and joy, like when said companion starts asking for a belly rub or rolling around on their back, like Rory does, massaging himself on his ball. It's hysterical. Legs flailing in the air, that sort of thing. All right, we have this one is titled a little heavier. What is the hardest lesson you have learned during your ministry? The hardest lesson I have learned during my ministry. I want to say there's two, and they're very different in some ways. For those of you who read through my website during candidating, you will heard this story more than from a couple of my references that talked about in my first year of my ministry at Mount Vernon, the death of one of our young adults in a really tragic car accident. And subsequently, both her parents died from cancer in the next few years. And having to bear witness and walk through and have my heart shatter again and again for having to bury an entire family that literally lived next door to the church. So the hardest lesson was how to carry that pain and that suffering for myself while also providing emotional and pastoral and spiritual support to my members who were also hurting. I think every minister has to learn that lesson. How do we carry our own pain of loss and grief while we also are caring for our people? Yeah, that's probably the hardest one, and every minister has to struggle with that. The other hardest lesson was how to work with those in the community that are very, very concerned about finances and stewardship and numbers. And it is so important that they care. It really, really is, because we don't need a church going into financial disaster. But at the same time, by nature, financial and fiduciary people are somewhat more conservative and constricted by nature, and they should be. But at the same time, by nature, a minister, I'm a visionary. I'm looking for how we can grow and do things and experiment. And there's a really healthy tension there. And learning to accept that tension and knowing when to pull, when to tug, when to embrace, it gets complex emotionally for people around values. Holding all that in the church. That's a life lesson. Every minister's got to embrace that one too. So those are the two. And they're connected, but they're also very different. Yeah. So there's a sermon, that one. Okay. What, if any, is your conception of God? Your conception of God. That, of course, like any healthy human being, asking questions has evolved. And as we mature developmentally, and we learn and we ask questions, it's changed. But I've been holding pretty much that God is, for me, really an abstract concept that fully embraces our experience of life through love, through passion, through joy. For me, that is the sense of the holy. I generally use the word God more as a word to translate for people, but not personally. I'm not personally praying to a God. I would say it's more about the embrace of the holy, the sacredness of life, and what is truly most important to me and my values, and what inspires me, and what also helps give me resilience and strength and courage during difficult times. Having been raised Unitarian Universalist, I give full weight of gratitude to this theology that I was raised in, which is to fully embrace the spectrum of theists to humanists to pagans and to people who are Jewish or Buddhist, or lots of I don't knows in the agnostic department. For me, it is the full embrace, and I love that. I absolutely love that. Okay, this one is a deep dive. That's what it says. In your life up to now, what is the most painful thing you have had to endure, and how did you cope? I would say the death of my father. Probably the death of my father, yeah. It was in 1986. He was 51. I was 23, and he died from pancreatic cancer. And at that young age of 23, it was extraordinarily painful, and it rearranged my worldview and my relationship with life and death and suffering, I suppose, in some way like Siddhartha, meeting death for the first time in a very personal way. And of course, it happened very quickly, as pancreatic cancer tends to do. Thank goodness for good therapists and good friends who bore witness and helped me through it, and my mother, most of all my mother, who just listened to me again and again and again. Yeah. And ironically, no, not ironically, beautifully, it was the death of my father who helped me prepare for the death of my mother 20 years later. Yeah. Wow, you guys are not much. This is good stuff. How are we doing on time? Okay, a couple more. What book are you reading? Oh, my God, I knew somebody would be asking that. So I actually, because every year somebody always asks. So I took a picture just to make sure I didn't forget, and I had one of those embarrassing moments. Anyways, I am reading Harper Lee's Go Set a Watchman. I highly recommend it. It is very good. Harper Lee's Go Set a Watchman. So, see, I didn't have an embarrassing moment. I was ready. Gotcha. So we have a few more minutes. I got a couple more questions, but I answered them in the email, forgetting that they were probably for this Sunday. It was a laugh moment. But Mount Vernon, my church I just previously served, had a couple really good questions last year that I think are still on the hearts of all of us this year. So I'm going to offer a couple from last year before I wrap things up, because they're just so relevant. Last year I was asked, how do you forgive the people who have not taken the coronavirus seriously? And of course, a year ago when that question was asked at Mount Vernon, we didn't have a vaccine at that time. So the question has actually gotten more complicated, because it's not just people not taking COVID and the coronavirus seriously, but they're not taking the vaccine. And how many of us may have friends or family who have made these choices, and how do we forgive them? So I answered then, and I still answer now. I would like to reframe it as not about forgiveness, but it's about understanding and having conversations and asking questions and being firm in that conversation about where you stand in relationship and the seriousness of the risks that you feel like this person has taken, and does it put you at risk as well? So just trying to reframe it and understand. Sometimes people are swayed by a good, honest, truthful conversation. Sometimes they need facts and data. Sometimes they need life experience, like somebody they know getting coronavirus. But forgiveness, I find, I try and reframe it when I can into understanding, asking questions. And this one I thought was really good from Mount Vernon, and I'm going to offer it to Pittsburgh. Mount Vernon is a part, in this case, First Unitarian Church of Pittsburgh, is a part of the Unitarian Universalist Association and the broader global Unitarian Universalist faith. Are there ways in which this church could be better integrated with Unitarian Universalism and our global community as a whole? I thought that was a great question, and I think it's a great question for all Unitarian Universalists to ask and think about. And certainly, because this church has just gone through a significant transition over the last 2.5, almost 3 years now, you probably are more connected to the Unitarian Universalist Association, in particular the Transitions Office, as well as the regional office, because you've had the resources, you've had staff here, and you've seen how important it is to be part of the larger faith and pay our dues to make sure those staff are available and the resources are there. So I'm going to be working hopefully more with the board and with other entities in this community to help bring forth the power of what it is. But there is something happening here in Pittsburgh in 2 years that I can't tell you how excited I am. In 2 years, the Unitarian Universalist Association is hosting General Assembly. That is our annual meeting right here in Pittsburgh. So if you haven't heard about this, I hope you're getting little tingling feelings like I am. General Assembly, our annual meeting, is being held right here at the Convention Center in downtown Pittsburgh. That means we've got, assuming the coronavirus is really under control enough we can meet in person, we're going to have anywhere between 4,000 and 6,000 Unitarian Universalists. And this church, along with the other Pittsburgh churches, are going to play a role in hosting them here in our home city. So I can't even begin to tell you how excited I am about that. Stay tuned. Right now they're focusing on Portland, Oregon, which is where the 2022 is being held. But I know soon I will be in touch with the organizing committee for General Assembly. And there's going to be opportunities, for example, for something as simple as offering home hospitality for people who may not be able to afford the expensive hotel rooms. And there'll be opportunities for volunteering and all sorts of other things and having input about helping choose what restaurants we can recommend to people. So it's exciting. I really, really hope you get some tingling as I have as well. And I'm going to offer a couple questions that I took from BBC Radio, okay? This is BBC Radio, and it was difficult questions that kids ask, just to send you on your way. This was an interview with Robert Downey Jr. What was the best birthday party you ever had? What was the best birthday party I ever had? Probably my surprise 16th birthday party that my friends hosted in, they worked with my mother, and I had no idea it was happening, and I felt so loved. My best, yeah, though my 21st was a humdinger too, but we'll save that for another time. And have I ever peed in a swimming pool? I have no memory under the age of 5 if I have, certainly not over the age of 5. I can't take any responsibility for under the age of 5. It's possible, just saying. Okay, and do you like goldfish more than humans? That's our last question from BBC Radio, asked of Robert Downey Jr., do I like goldfish more than humans? Once in a while I do, but not most of the time, just once in a while. I don't currently have any goldfish, and that's fine. That's just fine. I think my Springer Spaniels would probably get too excited about that. So we're going to wrap things up here. I have so enjoyed this. I hope you have as well. Next year, hopefully we'll be all in person. You can give me the questions, and we'll see how I handle them at that time. So in the meantime, I invite you to enjoy this beautiful video of one of my favorite hymns, We Laugh, We Cry. Blessed be and amen.
We laugh, we cry, we
I have to add an addendum to answer to one of my questions that popped up when I sat down about Unitarian Universalists and the global community. I got so excited about General Assembly being here. This church is already well connected to the Khasi Hills in India, which I am so proud of and delighted. But there are Unitarians all over the world. So hopefully we can get to know some of them as well, from Canada to the Philippines to England and Mexico. So our hearts have to expand even further. What a joy. In our order of service are words that I'm offering to you to start working their way into our heart and minds and memories. These are words for extinguishing the chalice that Unitarian Universalist churches all across the United States say as they extinguish the chalice. So our words are joining with theirs on this Sunday and every Sunday that we say them. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. I hope you go forth in your life with questions rather than assumptions, with a curiosity rather than with a know-it-all, been-there attitude. Open mind, open heart, exploring, asking what's next and why, how come, and when. We will be back together again. It's not an if, it's a when and a how. I promise you that. Thank you all for being here this morning. We'll see you again next week. Blessed be, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.